Greetings everyone, and welcome to a video in which I will be explaining how I have set up my controller, keyboard and any other devices that I'm using in order to be able to fly the HPG H145 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Note that many of those things will also apply to the H160, but for today we're going to concentrate mainly on the H145. So at the end of this video you will have a good understanding on how the Hype Operations Center works, how to assign commands there, and how to bind those commands to anything you want on either your controller, your keyboard or any other device you are using. Note that I have a PS4 controller and I'm also using a G29 pedals. I'm using the gas pedal as right rudder, and I'm using the clutch pedal as a left rudder, or as it is called in helicopter, anti-torque pedals. I do also have TrackIR, as you can see here. I have TrackIR, so having TrackIR and using pedals, it kind of makes some keys and some axes available compared to people who might not have those devices. I'm aware of that. For example, you might be using the triggers as anti-torque pedals, but I'm using the triggers for something else because I have pedals. Same thing, you might be using the right analog stick to move your viewpoint around, but I have TrackIR, so my right analog stick is being used for different things. So at the end of the day, you might have a good understanding on how I'm doing things, and then maybe you can adapt it to your situation. So now we will have a look at the Hype Operations Center. So this is the Hype Operations Center. So let us see. You select the H145 if you want to use the H145. I'm not going to give instructions on how to install the base pack and action pack. That's not the scope of this video. We are concerned with the key bindings. So you click on View and Modify, and by default everything that is listed here is what you're going to perform in the simulator. For example, here it is fill floats. And everything that is in the right column, it is the Microsoft Flight Simulator binding that you have to use. For example, if you go and look fill floats in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you won't find it, because this is what you are going to be doing, the action you're going to be performing in the game. But in order to bind a command, a key or a button to fill the floats, you have to tell Microsoft Flight Simulator which command you're going to use. So in this example, it can be anything. They have chosen magneto free left. So you go into Microsoft Flight Simulator, you look for magneto free left, and either you assign a key on your keyboard or a button on your controller or your joystick, and every time you press that button, it will fill the floats, provided you have armed the floats and all. So how about things that are not available on this list here? Okay, so you can add. Now I'm not going to cover everything. I'm just going to cover the basics so that you can have, you can fly the helicopter. But here, if you want to go deeper, for example, here I want to turn the searchlight on and off by assigning keys or buttons to this. So that's what I've done. As you can see here, it's light on, it's searchlight on, searchlight off, but I've chosen to assign increase ADF volume and decrease ADF volume. It has nothing to do with lights, but you are telling Microsoft Flight Simulator when you press the button assigned to increase ADF volume, in fact what it will do, it will turn the searchlight on. I think by now you have understood how it works. So these are all the additional things I have done. Repack floats, landing lights on, off, that kind of thing, wiper. It's personal preference. So today I'm going to cover the basics, and then like here, pilot toggle if I want to toggle the pilot model in the cockpit on or off. How about adding something? Let's say I want to add something. I click on add binding here, and we will find a new line here, not found, because you haven't selected anything. So I click on that not found, and here is everything that the H145 can do. But honestly, I have no idea, because I have already assigned everything that I need. So let's take, just as an example, I don't know, I mean, let's say that PAX door left toggle. For some reason you want the PAX door on the left to open when you press a button. It's toggle. You can press a button to open, you can press a button to close. You get the idea. Just to give you an example, so I want the left door to assign a button to toggle it. Now Microsoft Flight Simulator has no such command, and I want to say, let's say as an example, I press D on my keyboard and it will toggle the PAX door left. It will open and close it. So I go here and I can assign anything. Anything. It has nothing to do, as long as you remember what you have to look for. Let's say, for example, ADF1 swap. Okay, now ADF1 swap, you click on save, which I'm not going to do here because I don't it's just for example. You click on save, and if you are already in the simulator, you're already in a flight, for example, on the ground or whatever, you need to restart the flight. If not, well, you just save there and launch Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then you go to your controls and look for ADF1 swap, and then assign the D key. And from now on, every time you press D, what it will do, it will toggle the PAX door. It will open and close it. If in case you're not satisfied with something, you can just click on that option again. That's for example here. I'm not satisfied, it's something else I wanted to do. You just click and you look for whatever it is you were looking for. Now for some reason, maybe you brought up that screen and then you don't want to assign anything, you want to exit. You just click outside. Here I'm inside the window, you just click outside and it will bring you back to this screen. So this is how you assign commands. Either you look for something that is already applicable. APGTC is already available, trim release, it's already available. So if you're looking for something that is not available, you add it down here as I have shown. And if you want to delete something, like here, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just click the delete, and once you're satisfied with everything, you click save. And remember, if you're already in a flight, you need to restart the flight. So this is how you use the key bindings in the Hype Operations Center. Now we will go back to the simulator, and I will kind of give you a little overview of what I'm using on my controller and maybe also on my keyboard in order to be able to control the helicopter in the game. Okay, so now we are going to be discussing only the essentials, like how to bind your keys, or whatever it's called. English is not my first language. So as you can fly the helicopter, that's the most important thing. And then maybe as a bonus I will add other additional things that you can do. So in order to be able to fly the helicopter properly, first let me talk about something very important. This is what has been recommended by the developer himself. Okay, the developer of HPG Group, Dave. You can talk to him on Discord. Very helpful guys, not only him but the other guys too. So basically what you need to do, and it also applies to the H160 in case you are wondering, you see this piloting thing, you have to make it off, especially this assisted cyclic. You have to turn this off because it's not compatible with the way they have modeled many of the things in their helicopter. So you have to turn this off. Now if you're using a PS4 controller or any other, like for example the Xbox controller, you know how difficult it is to fly with that tiny little thumbstick, which has nothing to do with that big guy here. It does not centers by itself. but here that thumbstick it does. So what you need to do then is to come to aircraft here, okay, and you go to setup, and everywhere where it's written SAS stability level, you have one here. I'm not sure you will be able to see on the screen. I apologize for the poor quality of the video. That's what I can afford for the moment. So everywhere where it's written SAS stability level, there's one here. Okay, there's one here. You move that slider all the way to the right, it will be written 100. There's another one here, and the tail rotor control. You put it to 100, that slider to 100, and there is another one here. Okay, SAS stability control. You put all those guys to 100, and then when using the thumbstick, it will be more manageable. And something else, when you will be using the collective, if you want big increments, you put it large. That is, one press of the button to raise the collective will raise it by a huge amount. But if you are like me, you want to have, you know, little increments in order to be able to control it better in a hover, for example, manually flying the aircraft, which I like to do, then you want to put it on the smallest. So with that out of the way, like I said, I will be covering only the basics. Okay, so we'll have a look at the rudder pedals first, or should I say the anti-torque pedals. So I'm using the G29 pedals as already mentioned. So there they are. So flight control surfaces, the primary controls, the rudder axis right, that's the gas pedal, and the rudder axis left, that's the clutch pedal. And since I'm also using this with the H160, I've also assigned the brake pedals as the brakes. And the most important thing here is because you have two different axes, or whatever the plural of axis is, you have two different, whereas the anti-torque pedal is usually only one axis. So to make it work so that when you're not touching the pedals are also centered in the game, you come to sensitivity here, and this is how you have to calibrate. So this is the right anti-torque pedal, that is, I'm using the gas pedal here, and this is the clutch pedal, which corresponds to the left anti-torque pedal. Okay, so that's why you have to do this. Otherwise, in game you will have one pedal by default fully pressed. And how to do this is sensitivity minus and plus both at 0, dead zone 2%, because if you put it at 0% you have that little thing here, so 2% it's good. And the neutral is what will raise this up here, like here. You put it to minus 100, not this one, this is just for demonstration purposes. You put the neutral to minus 100, and extremity dead zone, that's that part here. I want a little dead zone, 4-5%, it's up to you. And reactivity 100%. This way, when you I'll just apply and save, even you haven't changed anything. This way, when you are applying the pedals, as you can see, it was already, you know, centered. Right? I'm not touching anything, the pedals are centered. Now we will see on the PS4 controller what are the key bindings. So I will be covering only the basics first, and then I will cover also additional things that you can do. So let's start with the Cyclic. So the Cyclic, I'm using the right analog stick because usually you grip the Cyclic with the right hand, so I wanted to use the right thumb for that purpose. And we can actually also display this here, so you can see. Okay, that's the Cyclic. And since I'm using a right analog stick, right thumb, so I need left hand for the collective. So what I'm doing is it's up on the D-pad and down on the D-pad. Up to raise, down to lower. Okay, so now let's see what I'm using as a trim release. For the Cyclic trim release, let me see if I can show it to you here. That's this guy, manual trim release. Okay, I'm using the R2 button. It's a right trigger. I press, it's activated. I release, it's deactivated. So I press and hold, and then I can, it's even written trim release here. I can move the stick around without having to fight. Because if I don't, look at there, I release. Okay, if I don't press the cyclic trim release and I'm doing this, I will be fighting with the helicopter. You don't want to do this. And similarly, the collective too has a trim release. Even if you don't use it often, even in real life, pilots don't use it often, I have assigned the L2 button as collective trim release. Okay, so now let's talk about the cyclic beep trim. That's this guy here. You operate it by moving it up, down, right, and left. And with this in mind, I'm using the R1 as modifier, and then triangle for cyclic beep trim up, cross for down, circle for right, and square for left. So it goes the same way, up, down, or left, right, but this time I'm using triangle for up, cross for down, circle for right, and square for left, without forgetting the R1 as modifier. And similarly for this guy here, it's the collective beep trim. This time I'm using the L1 button as modifier, and on the D-pad up, down, right, left to move it in the corresponding direction. And depending on which mode you have chosen, they will do different things. Okay, so now let's talk about, let's say, this guy here. Usually when you are landing in congested areas, you might want to turn the helicopter traffic awareness system, you mute it temporarily. So I have assigned the triangle button. Without modifiers, I press the triangle button and it will mute the helicopter traffic awareness system for 5 minutes. And then you have the EPI ground trajectory control. I'm using this button here. I'm using the X button on the PS4 controller. Now what all these things perform actually with helicopter, this will be explained in a next video where I will be demonstrating all these things. For now I'm just telling you what I'm mapping to the PS4 controller or the keyboard controller. So AP GTC is mapped to the X button on the controller. And since we are here, let's talk about the circle button. You see those messages here. From time to time messages will appear here. You can click this soft key to acknowledge, or I believe it is this button. I'm not sure, but I believe it's this button of the cyclic, but I'm using the circle button, and as you can see it acknowledges wherever it's written here. Okay, so now let's talk about the autopilot. Usually that guy here, you turn it, you push it right, it's like a hatch switch or whatever it's called, same as the trim here. So right for AP1 on, left for AP2 on, etc. But what I'm interested is the up and down. Okay, so when I flick it up, it turns the AP back up on. So what I'm doing, I'm using the L1 button, and then I'm flicking the left analog stick up. This will correspond to AP back up on. And similarly AP off, it's the same modifier, it's still the L1 button, but this time I flick the left analog stick down. Okay, and then the AP back up cut, I'm using the square button on the PS4 controller. I believe it's this guy. I believe it's either this guy or this guy, but anyway, I'm using the square button on the PS4 controller, and the A trim toggle, there it is, A trim toggle, I'm using L1 plus R1 as modifier and square. As you can see here, it's I'm toggling it. And something else you might want to assign a button to is the go around. What I'm using is the L1 as modifier and L3. You know the L3 button, the left thumbstick, you click it like inside the controller. That's the what I call the L3 button. So it's L1 plus L3, that will be the go around button. And in some variants you need a primary button like a trigger. For example, I think the firefighter variant, you need to, or the hook, the cargo hook, you need to press that button to attach or detach the load. So what I'm using is I'm simply using the L3 button. I just click the L3 button, and that is what is corresponding to the primary. So I think I've covered the basics of the basics here. This will allow you to fly the helicopter without any problems. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and assign additional stuffs to your controller or your keyboard, and this is what we will be seeing next. Now, additionally, if you want to kind of add other things, like for example fill float, if you want to, you can do it from here, I believe. I don't know where you have to go for it, but there it is, fill floats. But I don't like to use the tablet for those purposes. Okay, not even lights, autopilot and all that, those I don't like. So what I've done is I've assigned buttons and keys on the PS4 controller or the keyboard for that purpose. So to fill the floats, you have to make sure that it is armed first. Where are you? Emergency float, or I believe you are not armed. Yes, you were armed. Okay, so what I've done in, and maybe I would go, now exceptionally I'm using the external view because I usually remain in cockpit view. And as you can see, you're not seeing my pilot. I have assigned this to the 1 button. Now you see me, now you don't. Let me show you the fill floats first, and then I will tell you why I have assigned a button for this. So it's the R1 plus R2, and then I click L3. There you go. Actually, if I was inside, you would have heard the sound. And to repack it, it's Control F. Okay, so from inside, let's do it. Okay, and to repack it, Control F. Now it's up to you. It's up to you. Okay, and yeah, why I have decided to assign a button to toggle the pilot, I will show you. All these are things you can do. What are you doing? I want crew and payload. There you go. Let's use the HPG pilot. Okay, and then in options, I believe, here I have chosen pilot automatic hide, head and body. Very important. Head and body. Okay, so let me bring the guy back, and as you can see, this is the HPG guy. Okay, and suppose I want to do something here, because as you can see, his legs, even if it was supposed to hide body, not only the head, oh, he was just headless, yeah, okay, not only the head but the body too, and I want to do it from here because I know where those guys are. So I press 1, woohoo, bye bye, and then I have assigned keys for that too, by the way, but just to give you a little demonstration. Now he's back, and for some reason, if I want to do a screenshot or whatnot, because I don't use external view, usually I fly only from the cockpit view. So that's why I have a button, a key on the keyboard for that. And I think you can hear me pressing it, isn't it? So let's bring the Asobo guy back. Okay. So that's one additional thing you can do. Now look outside. Look outside. Okay. Do you see the landing lights? Now, oh, they are on and they are off. And wait for these searchlights, ladies and gentlemen. Off. Okay, and you can even whoa, turning and all. So how am I doing this? Let's turn it off. Okay, so that's what controls landing lights and searchlight. This guy here. So it's like you can see here, it's like the B trim, up, down, left, right, like the hatch switch, I believe it's called. Sorry, once again, English is not my first language. So when you move it right, it turns the landing lights on. When you move it left, it turns the landing light off. For the searchlight, it's up and down. And this is what I'm doing. I'm using R1 plus R2 as modifier, and same, right, it will turn landing light on, left, landing light off, up, searchlight on, and down, searchlight off. And I'm keeping R1 and R2 as modifier, and I'm using the left analog stick to move the searchlight. Okay, so those are additional things. You don't need that. You don't need any mapping key buttons for that, but it sure adds to the immersion. Oh, I just saw something. Oh, I believe it was the guys. Let me hide it. Okay, so what else can you do? Wipers, for example. Is my okay. I have keys for that. So that's the slow. That's the fast. That's off. Okay. Or otherwise, you can look at where you have to go. Same thing for here. Okay, Alt A. I have a key for that. To engage it. Now it won't work because autopilot AFCS is not available on ground. But let's say, for example, I want to choose pre-select an altitude of 1,400. Okay, 1,400. If I look here to turn the knob, I'm not seeing there. So I have assigned keys for that. So I just look at the screen.
Alt A crossing. Alt A.
There you go. I want to decrease. You can hear me pressing the buttons. Okay, so I don't have to look there. I have assigned keys for that. Same thing for the airspeed. Okay, for the airspeed, there you go. For some reason, okay, 70. Okay, so heading. You see the guy here? I don't think that's the most. That's you can see that little guy moving here. Okay, so I don't have to look. So VS everything I have assigned keys, and you can choose which button you want to assign to these guys as long as you remember what you have to press. You decide what's going to make your experience more enjoyable and better, and you assign keys to that. Okay, that's more or less what I have assigned my controller and keyboard to, and we discussed mainly the controller for today. And in the next video we are going to have a little demonstration flight, and for those of you who don't know, maybe the cyclic trim, beep trim, what it does and all, you will have a good overview of what all of these things does. I might use the tablet as reference. Okay, I might use this tablet as reference, but I won't be actually clicking on the tablet here, just for visual reference. Okay, so I thank you for watching this video. I hope by now you know what you need to do in the Hype Operations Center, and here also how you can use the PS4 buttons to your best. So remember, there will be a second part to this video where I will be actually flying the helicopter and using all the commands we've just seen. So I will see you in the next one. For now, it's goodbye.